Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, the truth of the matter is, America, that behind this microphone, on the Blaze digital platform, and my Fox show, we've led the effort now to push back against the rogue judiciary. We don't have judges anymore. We have judicial oligarchs. Now, understand how this works. They have their own courtroom, but they have their own office. And they have a conference room, and they tend to have some law books, like they look like they're actually using them. At the district court level, depending on the judge, they have 2 or 3 clerks. So there's a lawyer with 2 or 3 recent law graduates sitting together and apparently deciding how to run the country. I can tell you, and as you listen to this program over the years, you know, this is not America's constitutional republic. These judges with their own little fiefdoms, you meet in the conference room, sit with their clerks, decide what they want to do as the ends justify the means. They don't even respect the fact that they're federal district judges in a federal district, which is where their rulings are supposed to be effective. So they sit there with their 2 or 3 law clerks. Sometimes the judge will sit there alone, and he or she will decide, no, the President of the United States cannot and will not do this. No. And I'm going to issue a ruling that extends far beyond the courthouse, far beyond the jurisdiction I'm in, for the entire country. But wait a minute, you're in San Francisco. Wait a minute, you're in Seattle. Wait a minute. You're in New York. You're in Providence, Rhode Island. You're in Boston. You're in Washington, D.C. That's right. That's right. Well, where's your authority? They have no authority. They have no authority whatsoever to do what they're doing. Nothing Donald Trump has done since the election has gone without judicial review, and in most of those cases, judicial obstruction and interference. Martha McCallum on Fox, she's a real journalist. A very lovely person, by the way. She has integrity. She tries to do the right thing, and she does. She invited us, that is me, on the program. She invited me last week. I couldn't do it. She invited us again today, so I did it. So I want to play the next 6 minutes for you on Martha's show. I've gotten endless texts and emails from most of the people you would know who appreciated it. I don't believe I've ever done this before. If I have, it's rare. So take a listen. Up the volume, sit back. Here we go. Cut 15, go.
This, I want to put up here the Landmark Legal Foundation, which you were arguing on behalf of and you're part of, versus EPA decision back in 2003, which essentially says that this kind of directive, injunction from a judge must be recorded in writing, not just a verbal decision by the judge. Explain how this impacts what's going on with Boasberg and these flights to El Salvador.
Let me try and help this renowned radical left-wing judge. This is called Judging 101. If you want people to do something, they need to understand what you want them to do. Martha, there's a lot of people in between that courtroom and that flight. President of the United States isn't in the courtroom. The Attorney General is not in the courtroom. The Secretary of DHS isn't in the courtroom. Literally hundreds and hundreds of people are affected by this judge's order. He knows this. He's a judge in the District of Columbia where the bureaucracy thrives. So when you're a judge, Judge 101, you don't just sit at the bench and say, you know, you ought to stop doing this and stop doing that. It doesn't necessarily get to everybody, certainly not in a timely way. He figured it out. It was a little late. It's only been the custom, practice, and tradition in that courtroom for at least 23 years when I litigated this case, which is put your damn order in writing, Judge, so the people you're bullying around and ordering around know exactly what you're doing. It's called giving them notice. That's what it called. So let me help the appellate judges, some of whom are equally renowned for being left-wing, which is this. This is separation of powers. The fact that petitioners are radical leftists, Democrats, attorneys general in blue states, union bosses, and worse, who are bringing these cases in these cities where they know these judges from Biden, Obama, and Clinton exist. This whole thing is becoming a sham. The American people are losing faith in the judiciary. We can't have a judicial oligarchy of unelected judges at the trial court level who aren't even in the Constitution telling the president what to do on human resources, on the border, on deporting criminal illegal aliens. I mean, wait until we get to non-criminal illegal aliens. Can't tell him he can't look at payroll. He can't look at data. What is it that the president can do? Martha, these are ministerial tasks. These are normal tasks for a president of the United States. Notice it only goes one way. Biden violates immigration laws. The border's wide open. Criminal aliens are coming in. Terrorists are coming in. Fentanyl coming in. And the judges sit on their hands. And I can go over and over. This is the greatest assault, listen to me, on the Constitution, separation of powers, Article 2, the power of the presidency, in modern American history.
So
and
let
these
me ask
judges,
you, Mark,
well, they may not talk to each other. They see what each other are doing.
So there's 600 and some judges at this level. You know, in terms of the Supreme Court, if it's as egregious as you say, what would you expect to hear from them? We know yesterday Justice Roberts weighed in really on behalf of the judges' right to say this, and the process is going to play out. There's a hearing on March 21st. What do you think the Supreme Court should do, if anything?
I would say that John Roberts, who I knew before he was a judge, when we both worked in the Reagan administration, it's time to grow up here, Judge. Think about Justice Rehnquist. What would Justice Rehnquist, the Chief Justice, have done when those four originalists 2 weeks ago, when this case involving another rogue Democrat judge, ordered the President of the United States to spend money on foreign activities? What would Rehnquist have done? Would he have joined the four? or would he have joined the radical three? This is an issue of separation of powers, and if it's not resolved, you basically, in the form of your question, have answered it. How the hell are we going to have 680 individual, unelected federal judges, they're federal district judges, not federal national judges, all sitting there behind their desks with their 2 or 3 clerks saying, you know, I don't like this idea, Trump sending this. I don't like this idea of banning transgender. I don't like this idea. This is exactly what Locke and Montesquieu and Jefferson and Madison warned. When you have a combination of branches rather than separation of branches, and Scalia did too, you have a tyranny. And I don't care about what John Roberts pronounces from the bench. Do your job, Chief Justice of the United States. Don't get into the political fight. Fix it. Because if you don't fix it, we're going to lose our constitutional construct, or Congress is going to have to figure out some way to fix it. And one other thing. The idea, and I've even heard it on my beloved network from some of these former whatevers, that we shouldn't raise our voice. That's our job. This government exists for we the people. It doesn't exist for John Roberts, the judges, Congress, or anybody else. This whole thing was set up for us, to protect us. When these judges are conducting themselves this way, when they're interfering with an election, when they're grabbing, seizing power in front of our eyes, we're all smart, we see it, from the executive branch, a president of the United States, he's elected nationally. They're created by Congress. They're not even in the Constitution. They're using a power, judicial review, that's not even in the Constitution, that was created by the Supreme Court in 1803. They should at least have some level of deference to the President of the United States. And notice one other thing. Compare the number of restraining orders, injunctions, and reversals that Donald Trump has had with the last 10 presidents of the United States.
We just had those up on the board, Mark.
It is grotesque.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. You know, George Orwell, Animal Farm, 1984. He used those fictions, but he also wrote a very short essay, or a long essay, short book, explaining what he meant. That the word democracy is used by the most genocidal monsters to conceal what they're really about. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have not genocidal monsters, but rogue judges and their advocates in the Democrat Party, in the radical left, their ideologues, in the American media, and in John Roberts. The use of the word judges, when these judges aren't judging, they're rewriting the Constitution of the United States. They're not judges, they're rewriters. That's what they are. Carolyn Levitt at the White House briefing today, when she's asked about this, this is one sharp young lady. Cut 7, go.
Since you brought up the judges, I would like to point out that the judges in this country are acting erroneously. We have judges who are acting as partisan activists from the bench. They are trying to dictate policy from the President of the United States. They are trying to clearly slow walk this administration's agenda, and it's unacceptable. As the President said last night, we will continue to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts, but it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda. We will not allow that to happen. And not only are they usurping the will of the president and the chief executive of our country, but they are undermining the will of the American public, tens of millions of Americans who duly elected this president to implement the policies that are coming out of this White House.
It's important, ladies and gentlemen, especially in this audience, and when I say this, I mean civilly and legitimately, to speak out, and to speak out a lot. Because here's the thing. The Constitution belongs to you. The Constitution was written for you. We, the people, are the sovereign, not the government. The Constitution was written to protect you, to protect your unalienable rights. It is not up to a handful of radical Democrat, out-of-control lawyers who got the lottery, who hit the lottery, who are now federal district judges acting like federal national potentates, to take your liberty from you, to take your Constitution from you. There's not a single delegate to the Constitutional Convention. There's not a single delegate to any of the state ratification conventions. Not one. I'm aware of nine of those states in which there are fairly extensive notes of the proceedings. 9 of the 13. I've read them all in writing my books. There's not one of the ratifiers, not one of the drafters who talked about a judiciary with this kind of power. They would not recognize this government. They would be disgusted. It's time to speak out. It was Montesquieu who talked about the combination of 2 branches out of the 3. He said when that occurs, you have a tyranny. So it's occurred. It's a soft tyranny by the judiciary, and it's getting more aggressive. John Roberts' proclamation the other day was utterly irresponsible, particularly considering his lack of action 2 weeks ago in a case that reached the court about another rogue judge who was directing the president to spend money on foreign activities that he didn't want to spend. And in fact, John Roberts was so arrogant and dismissive of you, the people, that his decision came down to one sentence where he just rejected the president's appeal and upheld the actions of the district court. He didn't even provide an explanation to the president, but even more to we the people. This government belongs to us. If separation of powers is destroyed by any branch, your liberty's at stake. Limited government's at stake. We have 3 branches. The division of power to protect us. All this talk about the rights of judges. My buddy Hugh Hewitt is very concerned. He even posted this morning or last night that it's the job of John Roberts to defend every judge and every employee in the judiciary. How preposterous, my rhino friend. How ridiculous, my rhino friend. Is that the job of the president? Of course not. Is that the job of Congress to protect every one of their employees? No. In fact, many of them aren't. It's the job of the Chief Justice of the United States to protect our Constitution and us. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
The cost of freedom is high, but this phone call is not. Call Mark Levin toll-free at 877-381-3811.
Garrett Hack, H-A-A-K-E, probably Hake, says Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel I should clear that up. Let me explain something to this hack at NBC News. I've explained this many times. There are appointments that are made by Republican presidents as part of a deal or deals that are made with the Democrats to get more Republican judges on the bench than Democrats when we have Republican presidents. And this tends to play out in the lower courts and other courts, not the circuit courts and not the Supreme Court. Every president in modern times has done it. And so let me explain it again, because apparently Garrett Hake, or Hacky Hakey, doesn't quite get it. For example, in New York, you have 2 Democrat senators. They can block a Republican president. Let's say they have 3 vacancies at the district court trial level. And they can just block it, which means 3 judgeships are empty. So over the course of probably almost a century or so, deals are cut, again, only at the trial court level, not at the circuit or Supreme Court level. And so what judges have done, and I remember this under Reagan, the Democrat senators and the Republican president would agree, okay, look, there's 2 nominees that Reagan wants to get through. There's one that the Democrats want, so Reagan will nominate all 3 of them. Is this hard to follow, Mr. Producer? Even an NBC reporter should be able to follow this, right? And so that's how you get to originalists, you hope. To originalists, you hope, plus a lefty or a Democrat or both appointed by a Republican president. I explained that the judge on senior status in Seattle, who's quite radical, is a Reagan appointee. Reagan didn't support him. He was part of a deal in Washington State to get other nominees on the bench, more Republicans than Democrats. That's Judge Boasberg. And so this NBC reporter says, I want to clear this up. I want to clear this up when he's asking Caroline Levitt the question. And of course, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Caroline Levitt would not know this. She would have no way of knowing this. But see, the goal of NBC News and all the other corporate media are to defend rogue judges, are to defend the annihilation of separation of powers, are to defend the denuding of authority under Article 2 of a Republican president, especially Donald Trump. So they ask gotcha questions like this rather than asking questions about what does a one branch of government, the president, do when another branch is obstructing him, seizing power under the Constitution from him. That is a real question. Well, let's see how this played out. Cut 8, go.
But Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Well, let me just say something to that effect, Garrett. 67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. 60% of the injunctions by partisan activists in the judicial branch have come against President Donald Trump, and 92% of those have been from Democrat-appointed judges. This is a clear, concerted effort by leftists who don't like this president and are trying to impose or slow down his agenda.
You can look at the background of this Judge Boasberg to show what a moron, what a schmuck this reporter actually is. He has access to the same information we do. Laura Loomer put out pretty powerful information yesterday about his daughter. He's a radical. We had Julie Kelly on the program, how this man conducted himself during the January 6 cases. He's a radical. The things he said about Donald Trump, completely out of line. He's a radical. He's conflicted. He's a leftist. He's a Democrat. And the reason George W. Bush appointed him to some lower level court is for exactly the reason I stated. As part of a deal. Not because he wanted him on the court, but out of necessity to get others on the court. That's what happened. Now, I've stated this. The liberal media monitor every syllable that comes out of my mouth. Let's see if they report that. Let's see if they report that. Don't hold your breath. But the killer point that she's making is this. Injunctions. The judicial branch have come against Donald Trump. 92% have been from Democrat-appointed judges. You know, we make the mistake, I have as well, but let's clarify something. When John Roberts comes out and does his little drama act with a statement he releases from the comfort of his conference room, he's not defending the judiciary. He's defending the radical Democrats in the judiciary. The vast majority, not all, some of them were never Trumpers, some of them, again, have been appointed as a matter of compromise and a deal, but the vast majority of judges appointed by Republicans don't conduct themselves this way. By philosophy, they're originalists. They know where the line is, or about where the line is when it comes to separation of powers. They're not interested in judicial activism. They're not interested in interfering with another branch of government. That's not how they think. That's not why they were appointed. That's not how they conduct themselves as judges. So when John Roberts comes out and defends the rogue judges, the radical judges, the Democrat judges, he's undermining all the good judges. That's what he's doing. So he's not even defending the judiciary. He's defending the people who are destroying the judiciary. He's defending the rewriters of the Constitution, the radical leftists. Now, let's be clear about something. The more radical the judge, the more associated they are with American Marxism. Many of these judges, you can ask the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee. You can ask Senator Kennedy. You can ask Senator Cruz. You can ask other senators. Many of these judges on the Senate, many of these judges are the most radical elements in the Democrat Party, which means they're the most anti-American, Marxist, Democrat lawyers they could find to put on the federal bench, because they rammed them through near the end of the Biden regime, and they ran them throughout the 8 years of the Obama regime and so forth. These are not people who respect the Constitution. They have nothing but contempt for it. They embrace the 1619 Project. They embrace CRT. They embrace DEI. They embrace the smearing of the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution. These are the people who are making rulings. These are the people who are, quote unquote, judging. We had lawfare against Donald Trump, where these rogue prosecutors in the Biden regime, in the Biden Department of Injustice, in the Biden Federal Bureau of so-called investigation, all focused on destroying Donald Trump, putting him in prison, and bankrupting him. And local DAs followed. In fact, worked in concert. That's what they did. That's what they're doing. Now they're trying to destroy his presidency. Many of the same judges, but more judges. Because the plaintiffs here are of the same party as the judges. They're of the same ideology of the judges. They're of the same belief system of the judges. They are American Marxists. And isn't it funny? They know which judges, which courtrooms to seek out. And they hope to get. How do they know? How do they know where to go? How do they know which judges to cherry pick? How do they know? Isn't it funny that they know? They know who the radical judges are. They know who the friendlies are. They know who the American Marxists are. So do we. So does John Roberts. So we're supposed to play a game and pretend we don't? We have some of these former federal, whatever they call themselves, on TV and so forth, and they like to say, I brought a zillion cases, and I've had hundreds of judges, and they're wrong from time to time and so forth, but I don't attack them. I don't speak out against them. Well, number one, shame on you. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That's one case involving one person. We're talking about an assault on the constitutional system, not a case in some courtroom in Timbuktu, where the litigant is the President of the United States or one of the cabinet secretaries. Not Ernie Grabotsky, who was jaywalking or exposing himself in the public square. We're not talking about that. If judges limited themselves to that, who would care? That's not what we're talking about. Something much more greater than former federal prosecutors have ever dealt with, ever, in their careers, ever. And yet so many of them who have voices, who have pens, defend this. Because this is how they were raised, this is how they were brainwashed, this is how they think. They need to get outside their little cocoons. They need to take a bigger look at what's taking place. We cannot have 680 judges, or let's say 400 of them or so appointed by Democrats, looking over a president's shoulder and a president unsure of what he can and cannot do. We cannot have that kind of instability in the law and in our constitutional undertakings. There's separation of powers. It's not complicated. There's 3 branches of government. It's not complicated. There's some overlap. There's some areas that overlay. Yes. But not fundamental principles. No. The whole idea of checks and balances and everything you're taught in 3rd grade are under attack. Was John Locke wrong? Was Montesquieu wrong? Were they wrong when they talked about the division of powers? Were the founders of our country wrong when they wrote and fought for a free nation under the Declaration of Independence? Were they wrong? They fought for representative government, not for lifetime judges who can issue edicts, not decisions, edicts. Was James Madison wrong, the father of the Constitution, who was repulsed by Marbury versus Madison, who was the Secretary of State, serving Thomas Jefferson, the author of the first draft of the Declaration of Independence? Jefferson and Madison were repulsed by Marbury versus Madison. They were repulsed by what the federal judiciary had done. Imagine what they would think today. You would think that federal district judges, not federal national judges, would have some self-restraint, knowing that they are not in the Constitution and the power they exercise, judicial review, is not in the Constitution, that they're a creation of Congress and their power is a creation of a Supreme Court. You would think that they would have some deference to the branches that were created by the Constitution. You would think they would have some deference to the President of the United States, he and his Vice President, the only officials in our nation who present themselves for election by the entirety of the citizenry. Instead, we have judges holed up in their own conference rooms with a couple of law clerks fresh out of law school deciding what is and is not constitutional. Can you imagine what Jefferson and Madison would be saying today? This Constitution would never have been ratified, ever. And there wouldn't have been a single vote for it in Philadelphia or any of the state capitals. Not one. Not one. That's why I say we live in a post-constitutional period. And it's getting worse. And those who defend it do not support the Constitution. Period. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Man, oh, Manischewitz, you want to hear our shows this weekend? Alina Hobb, I've only had her on once. She's a firecracker. We love to have her and a very brilliant attorney. This is Saturday, Life, Liberty, and Levin. Robert Greenway, one of the great experts on Iran and the Middle East. He worked in the first Trump administration on the National Security Council. Fantastic. You've seen him before. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Pete Hegseth, our first guest. He hasn't been on the program since he's Secretary of Defense. And Kayleigh McEnany, who I think is so smart and just fantastic. That'll be Sunday's show. I hope you'll join us. If you can, go ahead and set your DVR, your TiVo, or whatever else you use to record the program. You should do that ahead of time. 8 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday. Life, Liberty, and Levin. Or what they call around here, Mr. Producer, the 3 L's. Isn't that funny? The 3 L's. All right. You're getting on me. Okay, let me look. We got 2 powerful hours, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, hello, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. More of this, then we got more of that. Stay with us. 2 more wonderful, beautiful, magnificent hours. So, you know, Bernie Sanders is a Stalinist. As a young man, he stayed some period of time in a kibbutz in Israel. Not just a communist kibbutz, a Stalinist kibbutz. And it was known as a Stalinist kibbutz. He had his honeymoon in Moscow during the time of the Soviet Union. He's an old red. He's a communist. And more specifically, he's a Stalinist. You know why he doesn't sue me? Because I would prove it. And not only that, I'm a pit bull. And I don't take this crap from lawyers, frauds, phonies, and finks. Right, Care? So Caitlin Collins is one of the many constipated faces on the Constipated News Network. And, of course, nobody above an IQ of 17 is permitted to be a host, and she barely made it. She's the eyebrow, you may notice, Mr. Producer. The eyebrow. We notice everything here. So, of course, Bernie Sanders is on yesterday. Why? Because he's a Stalinist Marxist. And CNN promotes Stalinist Marxists and Islamists. That's why. That's why real Americans don't watch this crap. So let's take a listen. Cut 3, go.
When it comes to that effort in the Senate, do you think Senator Chuck Schumer is the right person to lead it?
It's not. I know everyone's beating up on Chuck, and I strongly disagree with him. Strongly. No one is in the caucus more critical of Schumer than I am. But it's not Schumer. It's the caucus. It's not the caucus. It's the Democratic Party.
So stop it. You see, this is the way Stalinists work. It's not Lenin. It's not. No. It's our party is wrong. The Communist Party. It's not committed enough. It's not fanatical enough. Now, you understand this question is absurd since he's not even a Democrat. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? He's a Democratic Socialist, so he's not even a Democrat. He's not even really a Democrat Party member. But it's okay. He gets the comment on everything. Why? Why is it that it's okay for a man who shares the ideology of Mao and Stalin and Castro? Why is it that a man that shares the ideology of the biggest genocidal maniacs, other than Hitler, of course, why is it okay? Why is he treated like he's just another Democrat and just another liberal? Why doesn't a single so-called host and journalist pin his friggin' shoulders to the wall? Why won't this little coward, this bastard, come on any of my programs? And by the way, Sonny Hostin was asked to come on the program. Mr. Producer asked in a respectful email. Any day, any time. Oh, wasn't that what you said, Rich? Open your microphone. And what was the response from the official people of The View?
I said any day, any time, and they said she wasn't available.
Never, not available. Never available. Never, ever. Well, let's go down the list, shall we? Next, I'd like you to ask Joy Behar. Would you do that, Mr. Producer? Go back to the same people and say, okay, Joy Behar. Mr. Levin wants to interview Joy Behar. Now that we know Sonny Houston's a coward, Bernie Sanders is a coward. Raskin's a coward. They're all cowards. That's why they go on the Constipated News Network and MSLSD. The problem isn't Chuck, even though I strongly disagree with him. It's the caucus. It's not the caucus. No. I mean, it's the Democrat Party. Democrat Party's the problem because I'm not running it. But you're not a Democrat, you moron. So the answer from Bernie the Red Sanders, Bernie the Stalinist Sanders, is the same as AOC, the Stalinist Marxist. That is, I am the savior. Marxists always think this way. Go ahead.
And understand that you have a Democratic Party, you got a Republican Party, which is owned by Musk.
You're the Republican Party that's owned by Musk. I ask all you Republicans out there, do you feel you're owned by Elon Musk? Is this guy the biggest putz of putzes? I don't think Joe Biden's the only old man with dementia. I think Bernie Sanders has dementia. I really do. I really do. He thinks he's back in the 1930s and 40s, marching around for Stalin in the streets of Brooklyn. Maybe he's marching with the Rosenbergs. I don't know. What do I know? The good old days. Wasn't he born in Brooklyn, Mr. Producer? I think he was. But he finds his way to Vermont. And he conquers Burlington, Vermont. Then he conquers Vermont. Because he can't really get elected as a congressman or mayor anywhere else, or a congressman or a senator. But no, he runs for the Senate. It's great for everybody. Elon Musk owns the Republican Party. And George Soros owns the Democrat Party. Who would you rather have? An America-hating, Israel-hating lowlife like Soros? A crime-promoting, Marxist-promoting, socialist-promoting billionaire like Soros? Or a patriotic American who actually builds things and hires thousands and thousands of American workers like Musk? Go ahead.
Fives Donald Trump will be primaried by Musk, unlimited amounts of money. In the Democratic Party, you got a party that is heavily dominated by the billionaire class, run by consultants.
He really is an old Stalinist Marxist. I'll tell you why. He's not up with the new Stalinism and Marxism. The new Stalinism and Marxism is wokeism and something called modernism. Wokeism and cancel culture. It's based on what Marcuse said, the Frankfurt School in Berlin, that made its way to the United States when Hitler took over, escaped Germany, came to the United States to destroy the United States. The birth of the New Left movement and the birth of what I call American Marxism. Now, what is it? Bernie, you're so yesterday. You're so Stalin. It's today, Bernie. Today. Today it's identity politics. It's not class warfare based on economics. Bernie, you got to catch up. That's not working. You got to say the American is a racist, sexist country. And that every decision the government makes should be based on race and gender. Where are you, Bernie? You're such a throwback. The billionaire. No, Bernie. You got to catch up to the new movements, baby. The new movements. And then, of course, he attacks Donald Trump. This is a guy who hates the Constitution like Woodrow Wilson did. The Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, enshrines the establishment of the bourgeoisie, of the management class, of the billionaires. It enshrines their power. This is what we've been told over the decades. It's too white. It's too old. That's why we need these judges, according to Woodrow Wilson, to fix things. Separation of power stuff prevents us from making progress, from going forward, to imposing our will on the masses, the unwashed. They don't know what's best for them. We do. We're more educated. We're just smarter. We're masterminds. This is who they are. And so they talk about the Constitution, the Constitution. They hate the Constitution. They've been trying to delegitimize the Constitution longer than any of us have been alive. Since the late 1800s and early 1900s, they've been trying to delegitimize the Declaration. God-given unalienable rights? Bernie Sanders doesn't believe in God. He doesn't worship God. Bernie Sanders worships Marxism. That's his God. Government. Centralized, iron-fisted government. That's his heaven. There's not a single person on CNN or MSNBC or Meet the Depressed or Deface the Nation or anything that presses this man. So of course he won't come on my show, because he knows I know who he is. Jamie Raskin, I know who he is. AOC, I know who she is. I know what they are. So let's take a listen. Shall we? Cut 4, continue, go.
Because you issued your own rebuke, as I'll call it, and basically said that you think President Trump needs to turn off Fox News and, quote, read the Constitution.
Look, you know, the guys who wrote the Constitution back in the 1790s when nobody's fools, what they wanted to do is have a separation of powers between the executive, the legislative, yes, and the judiciary, so that one person could not assume enormous power. And what you are seeing right now is a president who is authoritarian.
So what you're hearing right now is a man who is a pathological liar, and he doesn't care. He has no moral soul. What he does, what fascists do, what Marxists do, what Islamists do, all the ists do, all the isms do, is they project onto others what they believe. The greatest authoritarian president we ever had was Franklin Roosevelt. He loves Franklin Roosevelt. I would say Joe Biden is the second or third greatest authoritarian president we ever had. At no time did Bernie Sanders invoke the Constitution, separation of powers, in criticizing Joe Biden's seizing of power. At no time did he do that. And he's not going to do that. So he uses the language of the constitutionalist to deceive and to lie. He uses the language of the constitutionalist to attack the constitutionalist. That's what he does. That's typical of Marx and everybody who has a claim to the ideology, even though they can't really define it. In fact, Marx really couldn't define it, which is why of all these offshoots of different kinds of Marxism. Oh, wait a minute, I'm a neo-Marxist. No. I'm a Leninist. I mean, a Trotskyist, a Maoist. No. Okay, get the point? They all come from the same neighborhood, but then they splinter into their own gangs, if you will. But Sanders, he doesn't believe in democracy or republicanism or constitutionalism. And never has. How can you be at a Stalinist kibbutz? How can you have your honeymoon in the Soviet Union's Moscow? How can you be a democratic socialist and be a constitutionalist? They're incompatible. Utterly and completely. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then tried blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot. at a fraction of the price of the big three, all on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. You know, it's a little troubling to me, somebody who really, as a young man, put Bill Buckley on hero status. Man, did I love Firing Line. I couldn't get enough of National Review. I'd subscribed to the hard copy. I wrote him some letters. He wrote me back. Really fantastic. And he wasn't the only one. There were others there who were absolutely fantastic, too. But there's been a diminishment. The editorial today, by staff, I think it said, on this judge issue was truly deplorable. Defective in so many ways, I can't imagine that Bill Buckley would be supportive of it. We have an assault by one branch on another. We have judge shopping, cherry picking. We all see it. We all know exactly what's taking place. You don't have to have a law degree or experience as a litigator, federal prosecutor, even a constitutionalist. It's right in front of your eyes. We, the American people. It is a shameless abuse of power by the courts using these petitioners of the same party, of the same ideology, to push an agenda. It is completely at odds with separation of powers. We've been warned about this by the ancients. We've been warned about it by our founders. We've been warned about it by the likes of Antonin Scalia, these brilliant men. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. We know who's doing it. Some of the most radical extremists on the bench, more radical and extreme than any group of judges in this kind of numbers that I can ever remember. They were put there for a purpose, and they're doing what they were put there for. I don't know how a president can function in a unitary executive when it is parsed out to lawyers in black robes all over the country who choose to grab a piece. Now, you and I, we can't just acquiesce to this. We can't zip our lips. We have to speak out because, as I open the program with, this is about us. This is our country. It's not even about the courts. It's not about the presidency. It's our country. And about 100 trial judges, even less, who are unelected, whose names you don't even know, who go through a fairly bizarre process to get on the bench. While you're working, while you're going to church or synagogue, while you're busy, are running our lives. The issue isn't anymore what they can do, but what they can't do. What can't they do? Now you'll hear the former federal prosecutors and their ilk, the legal analysts all over cable. Well, you can't violate the law. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There's more laws, more regulations than we can even count. Any one of these activist judges can find any law, any regulation, and use it, and wrap themselves in it, camouflage themselves with it, to claim that they're upholding a law, they're upholding a rule. And yet any one of these laws and rules, quite frankly, that undermine the power of the president as the chief executive to run his own branch of government, is obviously an unconstitutional law or rule. A president can't delegate authority to a statute or regulation, and Congress can't take authority through a statute or regulation. I'll be right back. This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
We'll begin to close the circle on this and move on to a number of other things. Our great guests on Saturday's Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll set it. Alina Habba, who we've rarely had on just once to get into this issue. And an expert, excuse me, on Iran. A great guy, too. And then Sunday, Pete Hegseth and Kayleigh McEnany. So I hope you'll lock that in, too. And never forget, this program is heard everywhere, anywhere, and whenever you want to hear it. All 3 hours at your convenience. I want to encourage you to do a few things. You can find all my full radio shows via podcast, interviews, and then specials on YouTube. You go to youtube.com at Mark Levin Show. youtube.com at Mark Levin Show, or just search Mark Levin Show in YouTube. Simple. Or you can go to marklevinshow.com. That's the mothership. That's my website, marklevinshow.com. Click on Audio Rewind at the top and pick your favorite podcast platform and choose us. Or even better yet, just pick your favorite podcast platform. Many of you already have it, and search Mark Levin Show. It's all free. It's all free. So you can listen when it's convenient to you. If we're preempted, you can listen. For only 2 hours, you can listen. Whatever you want. And whenever you want. We make it available to you. Oh, I didn't. Robert Greenway is the gentleman who will be on really top-notch expert on Saturday as our second guest. And, of course, there's my opening statement on Saturday and on Sunday, which a lot of people seem to love. So there is that, Mr. Producer. Chris Matthews, I thought they blew him out. I thought he was finished forever. I could be wrong. I thought he had moving hands. Didn't he, Mr. Producer? But I could be dead wrong. What do you think I mean? He's a piano player. Piano player. A pianist, if you will. A pianist. Well, he puts his, I can't say 2 cents worth, his plug nickel worth. Go ahead.
He's questioning the separation of powers. Yeah. And he's questioning whether a judge has a right to be a judge. Clearly, he's teaching
You're
again.
You're such an idiot. You're such an idiot. The nation was so much better off when you were busy talking to yourself. It's just true. He's not questioning separation of powers. He's defending Article 2 of the executive branch. He's not doing anything to the judges. They're doing things to us, we the people. That's what's happening. He's not saying a judge doesn't have a right to be a judge. Hey, Matthews, do you even know the responsibility of a judge? You were always stupid. Did you get stupider while you were yanked off the air by MSLSD? Oh, he's back. He's on the Morning Schmo Show, Mr. Producer, so he's back on MSLSD. Everything's okay, I guess, now. The walking, talking hands are okay. Again, the pianist, the piano player. It's okay. It's no big deal. I don't know why our buddy Joe Scarborough brings these reprobates on. It doesn't help. Doesn't inform the people. Doesn't provide truth. I can't imagine that Chris Matthews increases ratings. I just can't. Maybe he's on there just to kill time. Well, then CNN woke up Justice Breyer, found him somewhere. What do you think about John Roberts' statement? Now, CNN knows, Wolf Blitzer knows what Stephen Breyer is going to say. Wolf Blitzer is a phony fraud and a reprobate. I don't know why he's still hanging around. I really don't. He's Wolf Blitzer. But anyway, there he is on CNN, collecting dust, bringing in, it's either Breyer, or Bernie Sanders they got to bring. Breyer, Bernie Sanders, or that idiot from Connecticut. Chris Murphy, or the idiot from Delaware, Chris Coons. Those are the big four right there. Those are the big four. When they're particularly animated and motivated, they'll bring in, like AOC. Just to try and attract the younger, stupider crowd. All right, here's Stephen Breyer. Cut 5, go.
So you think it was appropriate?
I do, because they don't know. I mean, when you have a district court judge or you have a court of appeals judge, somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose.
And so the losing side always thinks the judge. There's a problem with the judge. It's the judge. No, that's not what we're thinking. Not at all. No, we're talking about not a winning side and a losing side. We're talking about at least a score of cases in which judges are cherry-picked by the petitioners who are of the same party and same ideology. You see, the radical Democrat judges in these Democrat cities who just seem to be getting so many of these cases, you see. And they're performing as expected by the plaintiffs, a.k.a. the petitioners. And they are breaking into pieces the authority granted by the Constitution to the president. So this isn't about, I keep hearing this because it's such a lot. Litigants, some win, some lose, or former federal prosecutors who've litigated so many cases and they've seen good judges and bad judges. It's not about that, no. It's about rogue judges who are seizing power from the president. That's right. Not about your typical litigants, no. Go ahead.
What do you think the losing side thinks of the judge or the judge's decision? Naturally, they think it's wrong. Of course, that happens every day of the week, across the entire country. And judges are wrong sometimes.
This is how they downplay it. This is how they dumb it down. Everything's fine. Stop speaking out, America. Stop speaking out, citizens. Just because a judge seizes control of personnel decisions from the president, you can think it's wrong, but it happens every day. No, that doesn't happen every day. Just because a judge seizes control over immigration policy happens every day. No, it doesn't happen every day. Just because a judge orders planes to turn around carrying Venezuelan illegal alien criminals, gang members, to a third world country, El Salvador. No, that doesn't happen every day. Just because the president decided that transgender individuals are not good for the readiness of the military. Yes, but that doesn't happen every day. Just because the president decided that they need to look at payroll information and data to make sure the payments are being made to the right people, because there's $500 billion or so lost every single year, the GAO says. No, that doesn't happen every day. You get my point, America? We're not talking about garden variety criminal cases. We're not talking about garden variety civil cases. We're talking about plaintiffs who are cherry-picking radical judges who were put in those positions to do exactly what they're doing. We're not stupid. We know what's taking place. And who are executing executing as expected. That's what's going on. But go ahead with Mr. Breyer, please.
He appeals. He asks for a special writ in some cases, but he gets others to review the decision. Since 1805, and indeed before, it was always considered in this country. It was Chase who was, they tried to impeach in 1805.
You can say someone Chase. Jefferson tried to impeach. It didn't fly. His own party wouldn't go for it. So forevermore, lifetime appointed judges are never to be questioned. Not by Congress, not the president. They're angels. They're godlike. Never to be questioned. No. And we, the people, especially need to shut our mouths. Allow our betters to tell us what to do. These questions come up every day in courtrooms across the country. No, they don't. Not in the least. Go ahead.
The decision, you go ahead and appeal it to a higher court.
Correct.
And
that's right. You just appeal it. Like John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, what they did. They said, you know what, you're right down there. We're not even going to explain why. One sentence, you lose. And then it's, how dare you question Barrett and Roberts? It's amazing. Our free speech suddenly isn't so free. Keep your mouth shut. On the other hand, if you support Hamas and wear a stupid hat and carry a stupid flag, and you're busy assaulting Jewish students and vandalizing college campuses and taking over college buildings, we're told that is free speech. Yes. By many of the same people. Judges. Politicians. The media. That's free speech. But if you dare to speak out against these judges, which is more of a cabal, because they're all doing the same thing, there's a pattern here, and you're told not to recognize it. Just move along. Move along, as Lindsey Graham would say. Just move along. That's all. You're the unwashed masses. That's why we need these judges. Go ahead.
Correct. As opposed to simply saying, we're going to impeach him.
Excuse me, moron. That must be Wolf Blitzer. He didn't simply say, we're going to impeach him. They're appealing. Problem is, on several of these courts, like the D.C. Circuit, you have the same reprobate, rogue judges, like Judge Pan, P-A-N. Pan. Yes, and there's others. It's not just reserved for the lower courts. You see, because people of Breyer's party have made it so. They rammed them through as fast as they could. So they would do exactly what they're doing. Well, you can appeal, you can appeal. Of course you can appeal, and you should appeal, and you should go all the way to the Supreme Court. But that doesn't fix the problem, does it? That is, you have a cabal of federal judges who don't want to judge. They want to impose. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. Boy, we have a great hour next. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to dig into this issue of domestic terrorism by the left against Elon Musk, his companies, people who own his cars. You don't see a lot of condemnation by the media. You don't see a lot of condemnation by Democrats. In fact, they're piling on. They're squirting propane on it. These people are violent. They can talk about January 6th all they want. We have January 6th all the time on these college campuses. They're literally trying to destroy Tesla. You have Democrats on TV cheering the destruction of Tesla, urging people to boycott Tesla. All the employees there, they don't care if they're electric vehicles or not. These are vile, evil human beings. That's what they are. That's what they are. And they think of you the same way. Don't think they just think of him that way. They hate you because you don't vote for them, that you don't love their judges and agree with them, and on and on and on. That's the truth. Got a big third hour. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome, America, all-powerful, Hour 3. Here's an example. It's a federal judge in Virginia by the name of Judge Anthony Trenga, Trenga. And I'm reading this. The judge refuses several weeks ago to block the firing of 11 workers at the CIA and the Office of Director of National Intelligence who served in offices on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, which President Trump ordered to end. So Trump says, we're not doing this, you're fired. U.S. District Judge Anthony Trenga in Virginia refused to grant a preliminary injunction that would have protected the firings while the case was argued. He extended a deadline to Monday for workers to resign under a program that would continue to pay them through September 30th. So here we have a federal judge that said, no, there's nothing constitutional about this. The president has this authority. Now, keep in mind, other federal judges have ruled the other way, and they're all left-wing Democrats. So I looked up, who appointed Anthony Trenga? George W. Bush. See, this is the difference. Not in all cases, to be sure. It's not perfect. But I knew he wasn't appointed by Obama or Biden or Clinton. Didn't you? So I'm pointing this out. It's important to know. And now you know. There's a lot of cases like this you don't hear about, where these judges are saying, no, we don't have the authority to do that. But all these Democrat judges, they go the other way. And so you and I are supposed to close our eyes and pretend this isn't happening. Well, not on this program. That's not how we roll. This is a republic. By the way, very important in Wisconsin, all our stations, all our listeners in Wisconsin, however you're doing it, there's voting that is beginning on your Supreme Court, a Supreme Court justice position. And this is very, very important. Soros has poured in a ton of money there. A ton of money. If the Democrats take the Supreme Court, they will turn Wisconsin into a Democrat state. That's how radical this has become. So you folks, you Levinites who live in Wisconsin, you make sure you vote the right way. You make sure you go out there and vote the right way. That is, vote for the Republican, or you're going to lose your state. And you will lose your state if you don't vote the right way. So, you have a very, very, very important race, and you really need to focus on it in Wisconsin. We tried to get Senator Johnson on here last week, didn't we, Rich? Excuse me? But did they ever get back to you? Okay, we ought to try and get him back on soon to discuss this race in Wisconsin, because we do need to focus on it, every one of these battles. Very important. Domestic terrorism, ladies and gentlemen, it's an amazing thing. The left is extremely violent, whether it's on our college campuses, attacking businesses, attacking Jews, attacking. Over at a Hot Air, David Strum, left ramping up the domestic terrorism, something fierce. The amount of time, money, effort, and violence being put into the campaign to demonize and destroy Elon Musk is increasing by the day. I would strongly encourage our new FBI director and our buddy Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director, to get to the bottom of this now. This is being funded and organized by a political action committee, in part, that is receiving tens of millions of dollars from a left-wing Democrat who's divorced from the billionaire to whom she was married. But there's others, too. They need to get to the bottom of this. In fact, this campaign is so large that even I am getting flooded with emails, they write at Hot Air, presumably due to appearing on some mailing list or another, encouraging me to join in the effort. The effort to destroy Tesla. The effort to destroy Tesla. Think about this. This is the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is the party of hate. It's the party of violence. He says, I just got a press release from an organization promoting a Tesla takedown, bragging about how large and organized their so-called peaceful efforts are to destroy Elon Musk. That's an extensive. What? Thousands to assemble online to learn about the evolution of global Tesla takedown initiatives. When? Today, actually. 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Where? Online via YouTube. Who? Thousands of global activists and community organizers. And so it is an organized, heavily funded campaign. Then we have somebody named Marlo Nawfal. Nawfal, if that is the person's name. Tesla owners doxxed, sell your car or stay on the list. A website called DogeQuest has reportedly published the names, addresses, and phone numbers of Tesla owners across the U.S., complete with an interactive map and a Molotov cocktail cursor. Got that? The site claims it will only remove personal data if owners prove they've sold their Teslas, in an apparent backlash to Elon's ties with the Trump administration. This comes as Tesla dealerships face gunfire, arson attempts, and Cybertruck owners report harassment, while anti-Tesla protesters ramp up nationwide. This is Marxist. This is crap. And the FBI really needs to get involved in this. I'm serious. No doubt the visible organizers will decry the violence, just as the people who spent years slandering MAGA and Donald Trump, both before and after the 2 assassination attempts on his life. They'll decry the violence, as they call him a tyrant, an existential threat akin to Hitler. Yep. Well, when you make a website that uses a Molotov cocktail as the cursor, your intentions are not peaceful. The left, when it's losing, is always and everywhere violent, they write, and they're right. And their so-called moderate allies will decry the violence, but never in a full-throated enough way to make a difference. Tell them Act Blue is funding it, and they'll send them money through Act Blue because, well, everybody has good intentions, if not the right tactics, right? Totally peaceful, and if you think not, at least you think it's justified, right? Like Luigi Mangione, a killer, who just used the wrong tactics in the right cause, right? So it's understandable. Luigi Mangione. Now we know of this woman who I mentioned last night. The ex of a billionaire. Hundreds of millions of dollars focused on destroying Tesla. We already know that a lot of money to fuel all this moves through Democrats' Act Blue, and that Democrats are beyond desperation looking for ways to preserve their grift. Every Democrat Party operative is on full alert. Every Democrat judge is throwing the brown fecal matter at the wall, hoping something sticks, and that the brown shirt wing of the party is out there in full force, including paid protesters to beef up the numbers. He says, what's remarkable to me is that so many otherwise fairly sane liberals shrug and shake their heads. What do you expect, they say? Just as they shook their heads as Luigi Mangione was murdering a man and began justifying it, applauding it. And the best saying, I don't approve of murder, but he had a point. Apparently so, or at least blaming all this on Trump, as Jenny's boyfriend blamed Lyndon Johnson for making him hit Jenny in Forrest Gump. Sorry I hit you. That SOB Johnson has me so angry. Go on to X, you'll see countless videos of crazed leftists damaging Teslas and people screaming at families driving in them. Leftists sneak around to key cars, put nails in tires, paint Nazi symbols on them. Teslas are surrounded by video cameras. They record both while moving and stop, so there are plenty of such videos to find. No doubt when people are getting arrested, every liberal lawyer will come out of the woodwork to represent them. Yes, claiming the First Amendment, with the defense likely being funded by the same dark money funding all the unrest. As I mentioned, and he writes, the FBI needs to put together a big task force and start charging people, building a RICO case against the ringleaders and their funders. Only long jail sentences and very harsh treatment will make a dent in this. And to her credit, Pam Bondi said, you people have been throwing Molotov cocktails, we fine you. You're going to prison for 20 years. So we need to find them. The FBI needs a unit specifically to target those who are raising money, organizing, promoting, and executing the destruction of Tesla, its dealerships, the individual cars, and the death threats against Elon Musk, its founder. It's funny how the media and the left don't talk about this anywhere close as they talk about January 6th. Same thing with Columbia and Barnard, because it's their people doing it. It's the media's people doing it. It's the Democrats, the Marxists, the Islamists. It's them. They're doing it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. We have with us our buddy, Josh Hammer, who is a senior editor at Newsweek. But more than that, he's written a brilliant book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. And in this book, he makes the case that, hey, look, we, the people, are abandoning the whole basis for our country, our entire belief system. And we argue our case, such as it is, based on the ideology of the left, if you will. And this is destructive. We're taking steps backwards rather than forward. Josh Hammer, far be it from me to summarize what you wrote. It is a fantastic book. I hope it's doing very well. You summarize what you've written.
Well, Mark, let me first begin by telling your radio audience what I told your television audience, which is just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being just an incredible supporter of this book. You genuinely wrote one of the most gracious blurbs that I've ever seen, and thanks partially to you, my friend, the book is selling like wildfire, actually. We literally sold out on Amazon.com the morning of publication day. So it's temporarily out of stock on Amazon. We're replenishing as I speak, so it'll be back in ASAP, still available at plenty of other vendors as well. So the book, as you noted, is titled Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. It's different than a typical quote-unquote pro-Israel book, Mark, as you know from having read it. We deliberately chose not to kind of do a traditional blue and white Star of David sort of cover, because it's making a slightly different argument. Obviously, the book touches on foreign affairs and geopolitics, and I have multiple chapters on that. I have one chapter just called The Case for Jewish Nationalism. I have a whole chapter dedicated to making the case for close-knit U.S.-Israel ties on explicitly foreign policy realist, quote-unquote, America First grounds. But the book really is fundamentally operating at a slightly more abstract, theoretical level. And what I'm doing in this book, Mark, is I'm saying to Jews and Christians alike, we face very real threats. We face, in no particular order, wokeism, Islamism, and what I call global neoliberalism. Basically, the George Soros, let's tear down the borders, let's kind of all subsume us all into one homogenized blob, those sort of folks there. So Jews and Christians face the exact same threats. And in order to be fortified, to have the courage and the spine to combat these threats and ultimately to be successful in this civilizational clash, we have to remember what made us who we are in the first place. And what I argue in the book is that what made us who we are in the first place is the Bible, the joint shared inheritance of Jews and Christians alike, the biblical inheritance that goes all the way back to the godly revelation to Moses and the Israelites at Mount Sinai. Mark, you're such a patriot and a student of history. You obviously know this all too well. I mean, going back to the founding, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, they wanted the national seal of the United States to be Moses parting the Red Sea. In your native city of Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell famously has a scriptural verse from the book of Leviticus there on the outside. You shall proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof. Abraham Lincoln, my personal favorite figure in American history, famously refers to Americans as a, quote, almost chosen people, getting at this covenantal idea clearly borrowed from the Hebrew scriptures. So, Mark, in today's day and age, especially after October 7th, we see this eruption of the most ancient bigotry in the world, hatred of the Jews. But they're not actually going after the Jews, Mark. They're going after all of the West. The Jewish people, just like the Jewish state in the world stage, are always the canaries in the coal mine. And if you let the Jewish state or the Jewish people go, bad things follow. It's the Saturday people first, and then it's the Sunday people. The American founders understood that. Lincoln understood that. Americans today have to understand that as well.
Why do you think, Josh Hammer, the book is Israel and Civilization? I'd go ahead and order on Amazon, any major bookstore. They run out of the book, which means in 48 hours they'll have the book. I've had this happen. Excuse me. So just go ahead and order it so it shows up as soon as they have it. But in any event, why do you think so many public intellectuals and so many scholars who, position themselves anyways, conservative and so forth, don't address this or kind of blow it off? Or why do you think that is?
Well, there's a few things that come to mind. It's always convenient to just try to forget about the Jews. I mean, the Jews are a statistical minority. There's what, 15 of us, give or take, 50 million, give or take, in the entire world. That's not a particularly large population. And the Jews tend to punch above their weight class, so to speak, when it comes to influence, when it comes to all sorts of various metrics there. So I think that there is a certain element that just thinks that you can just get rid of the Jews, you will somehow solve all of your problems there. I mean, part of it, Mark, is also just a straight-up foreign policy calculation. There has always been a strand of thought, always, going back to the origins of the modern American conservative movement, that thinks that Israel is a net negative when it comes to America's role in the world, that it is our alliance with Israel that causes the radical Muslims, the fanatical jihadists to hate us there. I mean, these are the people that basically imbibe Osama bin Laden's letter to America as if it's gospel truth. I mean, these are people who are just not thinking particularly clearly. And frankly, the Abraham Accords that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu were able to achieve during Donald Trump's first term, that really was the final nail in the coffin to this old argument that Israel is a net negative, a net anchor for the United States' role in the world, because it was actually only by going all in for Israel, by going all in for U.S.-Israel relations, as Donald Trump did, from the embassy move to recognizing the Golan Heights to Judea and Samaria to UNRWA and on and on and on. It was only that emboldening of the U.S.-Israel relationship that caused the more moderate Arab states to make peace with Israel there. So Donald Trump, who, again, is Mr. MAGA, Mr. America First, he's a foreign policy realist, he gets this, Mark. It's incumbent upon us today to get it as well.
I want to expand on this, or I want you to expand on this, as you do in the book. It's a great book, folks. Israel and Civilization, the Fate of the Jewish Nation, the Destiny of the West. The Destiny of the West. Go to Amazon.com. Go ahead and order it, or any major bookstore. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
The book is Israel and Civilization, the Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West, which is laced throughout this book, where Josh Hammer is making the point the survival of Israel is about the survival of the West. And so let's put a fine point on this, Josh Hammer. It's in America's national security interest and in the interest of its ability to survive that the state of Israel and the Holy Land survive. Put a fine point on that.
So there's two ways to approach this question, Mark, and I think that both of them are important. So I'll start with the more narrow geopolitical, and then I'll kind of go to the more theoretical. So the narrower geopolitically salient point is the following. America's number one threat this century is China. I think most people, probably across the political spectrum, would agree with that. So the relevant question from a grand strategy geopolitical chessboard perspective is, how do you strategically prioritize the deployment of American resources to the Indo-Pacific to focus on China, especially as the Taiwan threat is starting to heat up, while simultaneously ensuring that America's interest in the very volatile and jihad-ridden Middle East is secured? And the obvious answer is that you embolden your allies in the region, and really the only ally in the entire region, that is the state of Israel, that shares all of your core national security interests. You embolden that ally to secure and patrol the region in a way that redounds to both of your mutual interests. So I'll give just one very concrete example. So last summer, Israel went on this multi-month-long killing spree. It kind of reminded me of the movie buff of Michael Corleone and The Godfather, just basically taking revenge on its enemies. And it was long overdue. It was terrific to see. And this culminated in the death of Hassan Nasrallah, who was cowardly hiding in his bunker in Beirut, Lebanon. But before they got Nasrallah, Israel took out two high-ranking Hezbollah jihadis by the names of Fuad Shakur and Ibrahim Akil. And I like to name these two now dead jihadists by name, because who are they? Well, Fuad Shakur was the mastermind of the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing that slaughtered over 240 U.S. Marines in Beirut, Lebanon. Ibrahim Akil was the mastermind of the similar bombing in Beirut in the same year of the U.S. Embassy that killed 60 to 70 people. The U.S. State Department had a $5 and $7 million bounty on those two jihadists' respective heads for 4+ decades. But they stayed alive. Nothing happened until Israel then delivered the goods last summer. So Mark, I hear this all the time from people. What is the U.S. benefit from the U.S.-Israel relationship? Well, I'll tell you exactly what you benefit. You get a dead Fuad Shakur, a dead Ibrahim Akil, and oh, by the way, if that weren't good enough, you get a dead Hassan Nasrallah and a dead Yahya Sinwar in Gaza to boot, as the cherry on top there, right? So, I mean, that's the very crass kind of geopolitical part of this. At a slightly more abstract point, here's what I would say. Just focusing on kind of the battle between nationalism and globalism right now. So the United Nations, these transnational institutions, Soros, Tides Foundation, Open Society, they genuinely actually want to eradicate the nation state. I'm not making this up. To me, Mark, this is actually part of the whole Mahmoud Khalil thing. Mm-hmm. These folks are deliberately trying to blur distinction between citizen and non-citizen here. I mean, this notion that an alien has due process rights, are you kidding me? I mean, they're literally trying to make you lose your sanity and confuse citizen and non-citizen. And if you're trying to eradicate nation states, it makes a lot of sense to start with the world's first nation state, which was actually biblical Israel. I mean, literally going back to the Bible, when King David unites the tribes of Israel in Jerusalem there, that is the predecessor, the historical predecessor to what today we would call a nation state there. So it makes a lot of sense. Just like the anti-Semites throughout history understand that if you want to go after the West and Christianity, you start with Judaism, so it makes sense today that if your goal is to actually obliterate the nation state, you'll start with the world's oldest nation state, which happens to be the Jewish state of Israel.
Mm-hmm. And we have elements within our own country on the left, and I don't even call them the right, but I guess the so-called right, who are really thoroughly anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Isn't that right? I mean, some of the people listening to this program might even like and might even follow. Don't you see that?
I sure do, and I typically call out these folks by name in the book. I'm not pulling punches in this book. I call it like I see it. I call out Candace Owens by name repeatedly. I call out Tucker Carlson, frankly, as well. And there is a growing strand of people on the right that are not just clamoring to tone down U.S.-Israel ties, Mark, but what I really, really think that some of these provocateurs are doing deep in the bottom of their very dark hearts is they're trying to drive a wedge between Judaism and Christianity. They're trying to drive a wedge between Jews and Christians. They're trying to convince Christians that you can somehow just forsake the Jews, that the Jews are what's holding you down, and if you just abandon them, things are going to be okay. Mark, I cannot think of a single instance in global history where a country has forsaken the Jews, has discriminated against the Jews, has oppressed the Jews, and been better off for it. Literally not a single one. I mean, Genesis chapter 12 says that God shall bless those who bless the children of Israel and curse those who curse them. And regardless of whether or not you believe in God, if you're a Jew, Christian, whatever, history has literally borne that out. I mean, history has actually demonstrated that in societies where the Jewish people flourish, that is a symptom of a healthy and flourishing society. And in a society where the Jewish people are oppressed, that is a symptom of a society that is in the throes of serious cultural and societal rot and decay there. So you really ought to care about the health, safety, prosperity, and flourishing of the Jewish people, even if you are not Jewish, because it's symptomatic of something broader. And then also what I said earlier is also true, this notion that he who seeks to destroy something broader, Christendom, Western capitalism, just like Karl Marx, they always start with the Jews too. So for all of these reasons, Mark, you really, really ought to care about the Jewish people and the Jewish state, even if you are not Jewish yourself there. But unfortunately, many of these provocateurs, some of whom we've named, seem to just ignore that.
They've gotten more weird, most of them. It's very, very strange, but that's their problem, I suppose. Folks, this is a fantastic book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. Now, the thing is, it's not a religious book, but it is a book that discusses the impact of religion. And in fact, as Josh does, if you really understand the American founding, if you really understand the founding of democracy anywhere, really, this is very, very important to understand. I mean, maybe perhaps not Athens and that sort of thing, but most places, most times, most things people think about. Our country for sure, in Europe, the Enlightenment, the whole thing. He ties it all together. He makes the case. It's a very unique book in that way. And that's why I gave it such a great blog. You know, Josh and I weren't always friends, I regret to say. But that said, I got to read his stuff. He spoke to me. I got to know him. He got to know me. And we realized that things come between people that shouldn't come between people. And we see things very similarly, not perfectly, but very similarly. And I think this book is really compelling, really compelling. And I want you to grab a copy, and I think once you read it, excuse me, you folks will think the same thing. If it's sold out on Amazon, there's a reason for it, because people want to read it. But it will be right back on Amazon. I know how Amazon works. They immediately act. They immediately get the publisher. They immediately get the book. So Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. Josh, great book. And that publisher better get that book back on Amazon. I mean, otherwise, you're going to get hurt on that list there. So they got to get cooking.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. It'll be back on Amazon ASAP. It's also available today at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop, any number of other vendors as well. And Mark, let me just say to you briefly, on a personal level, whatever, petty, silly stuff may have been years ago is more than in the past, my friends. And, thank you again for your tremendous support for this book. And truly, God bless you and all the work that you do day in and day out.
Well, you're very, very kind. Very kind. Folks, get the book, Israel and Civilization. It's going to really be eye-opening. The Fate of the Jewish Nation, the Destiny of the West. You don't have to be Jewish to read it. You don't even have to be Christian to read it. But if you are Jewish and Christian, you really ought to read it. All right, brother. Thank you. And take care of yourself.
God bless you, Mark. Thank you.
God bless you, too. Nice guy. Smart guy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that I did have the flu. And it got bronchial. And now it's the asthma. You know, I always come on the show. I always sound sickly. I'm not sickly. I'm really not. Just because I'm limping around because I tore 100% of my tendon. Just because I had heart surgery a couple decades ago. Just because it doesn't affect what's between my ears, does it, Mr. Producer? And I might add what's between my legs, but that's a whole nother story. Nope, doesn't affect any of that stuff. So I'm a healthy, functioning human being, if you will, a healthy, functioning male, regardless of how I might sound from time to time. All right, let's take some calls. Ronnie, Bethany Beach, Delaware, beautiful area, WGMV. By the way, Ronnie, have you seen Joe Biden kind of roaming around on the streets? Yes? No? Maybe so? Is Ronnie there, Mr. Producer? Ronnie,
hey,
are you
right
there?
Here.
Have you seen Joe Biden roaming around?
You know what? I'm ashamed to say that I'm from Delaware, Mr. Levin.
No. Don't be ashamed. He should be ashamed. But he's too stupid to be ashamed. Do you see him roaming around?
You know what, sir? I love your program. I love your show. That last caller really hit home with me because I'm a Christian and I love Israel and I love how you always support them. I feel like, Mr. Levin, that you're doing God's work with educating us with the Constitution. I was out.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I love your show. I love watching you.
You're a lover. I can hear this.
He's fantastic. Alina Habba, Pete Hegseth, your next show. Sorry,
You're out of breath.
Exercising.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, while I have you, what kind of exercises do you do?
I was doing some cross training.
Really?
Push-ups and walking.
How old are you?
You know what, sir? I'm an old man. I'm almost 54.
You're not an old man. I'm almost 68, for crying out loud.
I love your program. I love your show. I'm a first-time caller.
And we love you.
I've always
the millions of listeners love you, brother. You're a good man. I want to thank you for your call. Mr. Producer's saying, hurry up, Mark. You got to move. Anyway, I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much. I love our callers. I love you folks in the audience. You are my extended family. You really are. I don't know what I'd do without you. What would I do without you? I'd be like a monk. You know, I'd be like a hermit. Wouldn't I, Mr. Producer? I'd be talking to myself, which I do sometimes anyway. And boy, do I get in fights with myself. It's unbelievable. All right, Mr. Producer, I am looking here. Let's see. I got it. By the way, during the break, don't forget to go online, grab your copy of Israel and Civilization, Amazon.com, or you can get it at any major retail store. It's out there. And all of them, by the way, have online purchases too. The sooner you get it, the better. The book is absolutely compelling. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I wonder if my wife's going to be mad at me for the comment I made earlier. Between my ears, and you know what I mean, Mr. Producer? Uh-oh, baby. I don't think so. I am blessed by my wife. Truly. My mother-in-law has been ill. She's been in the hospital, I guess 11 days now, and she's coming out tomorrow. That is a blessing. That's wonderful, too. Other family members with various levels of illness, like every other family, and we do everything we can, don't we, America? We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, men and women in Ukraine. That's right, I said it. The men and women in Israel. That's right, I said it. And we, the American people, God bless each and every one of you. And bless you. And see you tomorrow.